I was elbow deep in sweet potato peelings when I heard the tires crunch over the gravel in our driveway. Heavy too, like something official. You live on a back road long enough, you learn what weight sounds like. That wasn't ups. That wasn't family. That was a gathering. 3 off-white vans rolled past the crepe myrtle and stopped just shy of the front porch. Satellite dish on one, 2 skinny young fellas hopping out the back with light stands, clipboard in hand. I didn't move at first, just wiped my hands on my apron slow, like I was trying to decide if I'd sprinkle cinnamon or keep it classic for the mash. He looked out the window before I did and furrowed his brow. "What they doing here?" Willie asked, rubbing that belly he swore used to be muscle. I didn't answer just yet. I took 1 step to the side, turned on the sink with my elbow, a trick I'd taught myself during COVID, and rinsed the last of the starch off my wrists. Water was warm, sun was hotter. I could hear the wind pick up like it ain't no whether to carry the moment or swallow it. Willie turned to me, already grim in the mouth. "You invite somebody?" Still, I said nothing. Not because I was nervous, but because I'd heard the exact thing he said 20 minutes before. "You just a homemaker, Ora Mae. Ain't no job in folding napkins and frying chicken and putting basil in biscuits." It wasn't the first time he'd said it. Wouldn't be the last either, or so he thought. And the way he dismissed it, with that offhanded chuckle like he'd said something clever while sipping sweet tea, I brewed from sun and black leaves like my mama taught me. But them 3 vans thought different. They parked crooked in the yard, and one tall brother with an earring and a headset waved up like he already knew me. "Mom, Mies, Ora Mae," he called. Willie's nostrils flared. I walked up behind him, untying my apron. Still calm, still barefoot. "They're right on time," I said. He turned. "What you talkin' 'bout?" "They hear from me." "The hell you mean? They hear for you?" I stepped past him, tightened the silk scarf wrapped around my hair, the green one with the gold flecks. I only wore that color when I wanted the Lord to see me with clarity. "They're filming today," I said gently. "That documentary show for the Southern Legacy series. We set that shoot schedule back in February. Remember? You signed the porch waiver?" He blinked like he'd just been thumped in the spiritual forehead. I thought, "Shoot, I thought you was baking for that little website." I smiled, a tired kind of smile. Like an old window that still opens if you know how to lift it just right. Who said it wasn't more than that? Willie's lips parted, but no sound came out. Because right then, the producer came up the front steps. Purple nails, clipboard, lokes pulled up into a messy bun that probably took somebody 2 hours to perfect. "Mrs. Ora Mae Sutton, I'm Kyra, executive producer with Rooted Media. Just know, we are so honored to be here today. Your stories, your pantry, your resilience. It's what the show's all about. You are the thread." Willie stepped forward like he meant to correct her. "That's my wife. I pay the bills round here." Kyra blinked, once slow. "Right. Thank you for having us, sir. We won't be in your way." Then she turned to the camera crew and said, "Y'all ready to mic up, Ms. Ora Mae?" I promise you, that man didn't move, didn't speak, didn't blink again. And me? I went and changed into my rust-colored wrap dress, the one with the bell sleeves and the belt that made my waist feel like it remembered its younger days. I moved through that house easy and listened with my whole body, not just my ears. I felt Willie's silence more than I heard it, and it didn't feel angry. It felt confused, like a man who only just realized he'd married a whole story and only bothered reading the first page. The camera boys set up in the kitchen, and one of them asked if I'd stand by the window with the morning light. Said it was perfect. Now let me ask you this. Have you ever been underestimated so long that when someone finally sees you, it don't even feel real? Drop A in the comments if you know that feeling. Be honest now. And tell me, where are y'all watching from? What time is it there? Anyway, that morning, I stood by that window. Sun across the countertop, just warm enough to make you forget your bones been aching since Wednesday. I held a wooden spoon in my hand like it was a microphone. Not for attention, for power. Because I'd stirred life into children, into church family, into casseroles that brought grown men to tears. And now somebody wanted to capture that on tape. And that same wooden spoon? The one he used to call my little wand. That was going to be the icon silhouette for my first show's promo image. Soft chuckle. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me take you back. Back before the cameras. Before the emails. Before Joylene clipped a coupon for a clearance camera and said, "Girl, you got it. You shine when you're in front of people, whether you believe it or not." Before the summer, I learned how to edit videos while the cornbread was baking. Before I started uploading little recipe clips to Facebook in between vacuuming the rug and folding socks. Let me show you how I went from just a homemaker to your host, Ms. Ora Mae. With credits in green cursive at the bottom of a nationally syndicated screen. It all really started out in the shed, funny enough. We had a little rusted tin roof shed behind the clothesline. Hadn't been used proper since Willie gave up on fixing lawnmowers for money back in 2011. It had one flickering bulb, a wobbly workbench, and walls covered in spider webs, but to me, it was quiet and empty. Which meant it was mine. One afternoon, I swept it out, put down a rug, dragged out one of the dining room chairs we never sat in, and called Joylene to say, "Okay, now what?" She laughed so hard I could hear her gum cracking through the phone. "Nah, you done turned that sad little shed into a studio. You told me to be serious. And when I said it, I ain't even realized you'd go full Tyler Perry on the back of your property." We raided her donations closet for old table runners and found me some Dollar General fairy lights. By the next Saturday, we had ourselves a proper backdrop. I cleaned my good crock pot, set it on that workbench, and aimed your cousin's old iPhone straight at my chest. First video? Crock pot lemon pepper smothered turkey wings? Real simple. I had 23 views. 3 likes. One was Joylene. Other was Joylene's cousin from Greenwood. Third one, my daughter, Nikki, who said, "Mama, this could actually be something." But Willie, he looked at it and asked, "So you gon' do this every week now? Talking to a phone like you Rachel Ray or somebody?" Let me tell you, that smirk on his face could have burned cast iron. But when I tell you I felt good in that moment, baby, like a spark dawn lit up old coals under my ribcage, I felt useful. I felt me. So I kept doing it. Next video, sweet tea fried chicken. Over 300 views that time. Week after that, buttermilk skillet biscuits went semi-viral when some New York food blogger reposted it. Comments flooded in. "My grandma used to make this, and I forgot how." You need your own show. Bless you, Ms. Ora Mae. This healed something in me. And every time I'd come inside from filming, sweaty and tired but glowing, Willie would sigh like I'd spent all day with another man. "You still on that little show thing?" He'd say, eyes on his newspaper, pretending he didn't hear me say we crossed 10,000 views. "You still think folding laundry's a talent? You gon' do that instead of starting dinner?" That was the refrain. He'd humiliate me in tiny ways. Jokes in front of company, comments masked as concern. Even told Reverend Carter once, "She'll stay busy with that camera hobby, bless her heart. But the kitchen was my sanctuary. And that camera? It was my window. Not just out, but in. I told stories my mama told me. Shared grief about losing babies too early. Made a peach cobbler so spiritual, I had a whole woman from Georgia write me a letter saying it saved her from divorce. I printed that letter out and stuck it on the fridge with a magnet shaped like a cow. Willie never asked about it. Didn't ask when the followers passed 100K. Didn't ask when the first email came, offering me a paid brand deal to feature their cast iron pots. Didn't ask when I started depositing money under the name Oma Media LLC. He just kept breathing loud and opening his mouth to comment and shutting it again when he saw I wasn't asking. It was about 6 months before the crew came out that the big email arrived. It said, "Dear Ms. Ora Mae, we are producing a new Southern Living docuseries on heritage, resilience, and untold culinary excellence. Your videos have made our short list. We would like to send a team to meet you and discuss your story. We believe your voice is exactly what America needs to hear." I didn't call him when I got it. I called Joylene. Then I read Psalms 23 aloud in my kitchen. Then I sat on the porch and let the wind wrap around my shoulders like my daddy used to do. When times got heavy and he didn't have words to help me, and when Willie came home, I had supper ready. Chicken thigh confit, collards with smoked turkey neck, corn spoon bread. He said it was almost restaurant quality. I smiled, because in a few months, it'd be more than restaurant quality. It'd be television worthy. So back to that day when the vans rolled in. After they got all set up and the clapperboard clicked for the first time, Kyra asked me, "How would you like to introduce yourself, Ms. Ora Mae?" I looked into that camera lens, took a breath so full it made my spine stand tall, and I said, "Hi, I'm Ora Mae Sutton of Ora's Home Table. I'm a homemaker, a mama, a memory keeper, and around here, I keep tradition warm, right in the oven." I didn't know what would happen next. Didn't know if folks would laugh or roll their eyes or if I'd trip over my words and look like somebody's confused auntie on public access. But I did know this. I had stayed quiet for a long, long time. And no more. Now, I ain't never been one to rewrite history. I tell it how I lived it. And the truth is, it didn't start bitter between me and Willie. His hands were good and his heart, well, it used to have rhythm. Back in '83, before kids and cracked walls and long silences, Willie Sutton was the kind of man who brought roses to Fish Fry Friday just 'cause he liked how I said grace. We'd meet at Jones Chapel in Tipton County, and he'd always find his way beside me during potlucks. Say something like, "Lord, woman, this macaroni tastes like it met Jesus." I'd blush, half mad, half flattered, and act like I ain't care. But I did. I cared a lot. He made me laugh. And think. He'd touch my wrist, gentle, when he asked me to sing with the church choir. Said my voice had weather in it, sunlight one verse, storm clouds the next. I remember thinking, yeah, maybe this man sees the parts of me I don't know how to explain. We married 2 years later with 10 Kiss Me cousins, 4 guests, and a carrot cake wrapped in foil. Moved into a 2-bedroom shotgun house on Harper Street. Back then, he worked warehouse hours with steel-toe boots and calloused palms. I kept babies for the neighbor lady and crocheted hats in the evenings for $5 apiece. We weren't fancy, but we were tightly woven in them early years. Tight like braids on a sleepy child's scalp. Back then, I thought love was enough. You ever felt that? Tell me in the comments. Did you get married thinking love would protect you from everything else? Because baby, love don't pay electric bills. Love don't solve pride. And it sure as sugar don't stop a man from choosing distance. Nikki was born in the winter of '88. Bit of snow on the ground, and my belly big as a house fire. Broke my water while stirring a pot of ham hocks. She came 2 weeks early, screaming and milk slicked with fists clenched like she was already fed up with the world. Willie changed diapers, sure. Heated bottles. But the first cracks in his kindness showed in the way he flinched at noise. Said he couldn't think straight no more and stopped playing his jazz records. By Nikki's first birthday, he was taking walks every other evening, coming back with excuses and the faint smell of sour on his breath. I buried my hurt under sweet potato pie and homemade photo albums I'd baked to settle the air between us. Cooked his favorites, always fed him first, like Mama taught. Always folded the towels into neat squares, but the pattern got clearer by the year. He worked, I worked at home, so it was invisible. He got tired. I got exhausted, but that was normal. He brought stress through the front door. And I met it wearing chapstick and an apron, like it was my job to absorb him. I loved him angry, and soft, and cold. But I stopped loving me in the process. You ever done that too long? Loved somebody so loud that you drowned out your own voice? Drop a heart if that hits you. There was one moment I'll never forget. Nikki was about 7. Home for summer, watching cartoons on low. I had a migraine coming on and tried to lay down. Willie barged in all mad about the car not starting. I told him gently, I'll go with you to get it looked at after I rest. And he said, dead serious? Ain't you got all day to rest? You sit home anyway. My breath caught in my chest like a church solo gone wrong. Sit home. I handed that man ironed shirts, polished floorboards, and fresh lemonade weekly, and he reduced it to sitting home. That night I put a note in my Bible that read, start counting the quiet ways he makes you feel small. And baby, that list got long. I never told Nikki. Never spoke it to Joylene until much later. I tucked it real deep, like most women do. You know what I'm saying? Don't you? Years passed, and I piled more virtue on that hope. I became Mother Ora at church, the one who always brought deviled eggs and never forgot the bereavement flowers. But I stopped singing, stopped drawing. I'd once dreamed of opening a gallery for Black Southern folk art, but that flame got tucked behind diapers and Sunday chicken. I don't regret a minute of raising Nikki, or the closet full of recipes I wrote in the margins of utility bills. It wasn't all sorrow, just lopsided. One birthday, Willie bought me a crock pot and said, now you can stop leaving them greens on too long? He meant it sweet, I think. But it stung. Like saying all I ever did was cook. Later that night, Nikki hugged me and whispered, Mama, your food makes people feel safe. That stuck. Now, remember I told y'all about Joylene? Baby, when I say God sent that woman like oops delivering courage, wrapped in sass. Joy was the kind of friend who knew how to wait till my edges were frayed but not broken. She'd peek in when I had the screen door cracked and ask, you breathing or just existing today? I'd say, existing, but I got cobbler in the oven. Well, at least you cook through your sorrow. Some folks just throw hands. She started filming me, quiet at first. We'd be making jam, and she'd prop her Android against the sugar jar. I'd say, girl, turn that off. And she'd say, it's for the angels. I just want to look back on your magic someday when you forget you had it. One day, she grabbed my arm and said, you ain't just making food, you making history. And there's people who'd pay to learn from you. I remember laughing, real sharp like it was a cruel joke. But she didn't blink. That summer, she showed up with a camera, She got off clearance at the Big Lot and said, "Let's tape one of these magic meals." I told her, "Ain't nobody gone watch a fat, barefoot black woman with chipped Polish fryin' fish?" She looked me square in the eye and said, "That's exactly WHY they gon' watch." Phew, that woman. She saw me when I was bone dry inside. We filmed our first episode just fooling. Cracked camera, no mic, my kitchen light blinking off and on like haunted hardware. I made smothered oxtails in front of it, told the story of how my Grandpa Ned cooked them every year after the harvest. Posted it on a Facebook page we named Ora's Home Table. Didn't think twice. We forgot about it for days. Then the comments rolled in. My grandmother used to sing that same song. Where can I buy this recipe? Sis, you need a book. I was shocked. Humbled, maybe? Scared, definitely. Joylene screamed loud enough to wake the crows. Willie, though? He raised an eyebrow and said, "That all you've been doing with your time?" That was his go-to. Every success of mine got pulled through a net of his ego first. Like my shine embarrassed him. The higher I started to rise, quietly, mind you, the shorter his patience got. He'd say snide things at the table. Why you need a camera just to cook beans? Don't get too big. Folks don't like loud women. Don't put our business out there, now. I'm a private man. And when Joylene suggested I do a Christmas kitchen pop-up for the community, he said point blank, "You ain't cut out for all that. You ain't never been that kind of woman." That night, I cried into a dish towel. But something else happened too. I wrote down 10 video ideas. Put them in an old biscuit tin. Joy Leanne called it Ora's Arsenal. From then on, whenever he tried to shrink me, I added another idea to the tin. I didn't argue. I just created. He tried to control the part of me that glowed, so I moved that glow into places he didn't know how to access. And what made it sweeter? I did it all while human Irene Carter's Keep on Cookin' girl with a spatula in my hand like a scepter. Some Sundays, I would teach a faux class at the rec center to a few teenage girls trying to learn cooking. Told them it was volunteer mentoring. Lead, it was paid. $50 a class. But mostly, it was freedom. See, I wasn't trying to be famous when I started uploading my recipes with captions like, "Miss Ora Mae's Healing Gumbo." I just wanted my name to exist somewhere outside of bills and birthday cards. Something with legacy. I wanted Nikki's daughter, if God ever willed it, to say, "My grandma had a whole internet thing. She preserved the way we made lemon cake with warm water and gratitude." By year 5, I had over 52,000 followers and a DM from a big South Carolina brand asking to do a trial content package. That's when I knew I had a business. Registered OMA Media LLC that September. Got a P.O. box for inquiries. Started keeping a spreadsheet with Joylene's help. When Willie asked why I needed a separate checking account, I said I was helping Joy with event planning. He nodded and went back to ESPN like I'd just told him the weather. I built a small empire under a man who never saw an architect in his bed. And yet, I still kept cooking for him. Still washed his shirts. Still waited for the day he might finally say, "I was wrong to dismiss you. But now I know some people too empty inside to handle your fullness." He called me just a homemaker. And I ain't argue. Instead, I waited. Plotted my piece. Prepared my name. Because I knew. One day, they'd come knocking, not for Mr. Sutton, but for me. There's a different kind of quiet that falls when you realize your name is the one they came for. Not your face. Not your house. not your recipe card. Your name? It happened on a Thursday morning, so come. Birds were practically apologizing for chirping too loud. Producer Kyra sat at my kitchen table with an iPad, tapping buttons and bouncing in her seat like a nervous intern. I'd just placed her some cheesy scrambled eggs with tomato jam and leftover sausage. She took one bite and shook her head like she'd heard a sermon. "This," she said through her chew. "This is Heritage." I laughed but didn't say much. Didn't know what to say yet. My hands were shaking under the Formica table. Willie watched from the hallway. He hadn't been right since the shoot started on Monday. Walking around in wrinkled jeans like he stuck his pride in a drawer and couldn't find it again. He stopped pretending to understand. Stopped pretending it was temporary. And truth be told, that made it worse. He started lurking, listening, asking little sarcastic questions like, "Y'all busy today? What they need another shot of your biscuits for? They putting you on camera again?" Like I was the surprise ingredient in a pot he thought he already seasoned. Let me tell you something, friends. There ain't nothing more dangerous than a man who's realized he ain't the main character in a woman's life no more. But I'll come back to that. Let me tell you how the reveal really went down. Kyra leaned toward me and tilted the iPad so I could see. It was the opening credits preview. Slick font. Greens and golds. Front porch shots. And then my face. Smiling, holding up fresh-cut okra in a vintage bowl. The title card read, Ora's Home Table, Preserving Southern Stories, One Plate at a Time. I stared at it so long, the screen dimmed. "That's gonna air," I whispered, with ... my name. She nodded like I'd asked her if the sky was blue. Why wouldn't it? Willie must have misheard from the hallway, 'cause the next thing I saw was his full body entering the kitchen like stage right. He grunted, "So y'all gon' use her name for the show? Not ... like y'all ain't just filmin' Bureau?" Kyra blinked slow. "Yes, her name, Ms. Ora Mae, is the heart of the series. You didn't know that?" Willie's jaw twitched. "I thought she was just helping y'all test this out before y'all found the ... real host. Lord, y'all." Kyra looked like she had just been slapped with a wet rag. I coughed into a paper napkin to cover my embarrassment. Willie shrugged and picked up a chipped coffee mug like he'd made a point. Kyra finally managed. "Nah, she is the host. Name's in the title. Did you not see the Dakasuri's log line?" He shook his head, tried to sip coffee, face hot as cast iron. And then he said it. Something that made me pause so sharply I damn near dropped my fork. "Well, y'all always eat here all the time, so I figured this show thing might as well include me too." Include him? Include him. This man ain't he sauteed a thing besides onions to help, and he talking like he streamlined production? I held my breath. "You're not listed as a collaborator," Kyra said gently, but firm. "Ms. Ora Mae owns the rights. This show was built around her story. And baby, when I tell you I watched that man implode behind the eyes like an old building, I saw it, the pride fracture. The fantasy dissolve. The center split. All the years he thought I was just passing time between his needs. Nah, I was building. He asked to talk in private, and I obliged. We went out to the front porch, and he turned away from the crew to whisper heated, "You really trying to embarrass me like this?" I looked at him, calm as a cold glass of sweet tea. "Embarrass you? I've been supporting you like bone broth, silent and necessary. And now that someone's supporting me, you feel small." He glared. "This entire house got my sweat in the corner joints." And mine in the floor tiles your check didn't cover. His lip curled. You really think you built all this without me? Them stories you tell, most of them involve me. But I lived them, and I told them with honesty and ache. You lived them with indifference and loud chewing. He stared at me like I'd called on demons. I took off my apron. Ain't nobody trying to shame you, I said. But you don't get credit for the moments you mocked just 'cause the world found them precious now? He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again. Behind us, Kyra called. Ready when you are, Ms. Ora Mae? I looked right in my husband's thick, glassy eyes and said, That's my name, they callin' now. Get used to it. We filmed for 2 more days. He barely spoke. Kept offering to help with staging, which meant moving fry pans the wrong way and wiping where I already cleaned. He started suggesting things like, tell him that cornbread story you always tell at holidays. Tried to elbow his way into scenes he previously ignored. Even asked if he could be credited as co-consultant. I said no. Told him if the camera caught him talking, it'd be by accident. He stormed off one night and spent the evening pacing in the garage, muttering about betrayal and not respecting the one who brought stability. I didn't respond. I just lit a lavender candle, edited my video tags, and prayed for him, honest to God. But my soul already knew. He admired me only when the world started doing it first. The night before the episode premiere, Rooted Media threw a small dinner down in Atlanta. They called it the Southern Table Salute. Said they wanted local creators to meet the team behind the show. I told Willie we were just driving down to support the brand. Didn't give him details. He didn't ask. We arrived at this quaint hall with exposed brick and checkered tablecloths that looked like they'd been ironed by ancestors. They gave everyone name tags. Mine, Coral Pink. Full script, Ms. Ora Mae Sutton, creator Ora's Home Table. Willie's, +1, guest of creator. You should have heard the silence in his throat. Best part, Joylene came to a hair slicked up into a knot with rhinestones, lipstick glinting like sun tea. She grabbed one of every hors d'oeuvre and whispered, I just came for 2 things, shrimp bites and satisfaction. The event opened with a video montage. Started with shots of Black mothers cutting onions, old men shelling peas on wooden porches, little kids licking whisks behind aproned grandmas. Then it zoomed in. To me, screens filled with me pulling casseroles from the oven, talking about loss, pain, and the sacred everydays. My words playing over soft piano. A Black Southern kitchen is a sanctuary and a battlefield. It's where I found God in Greece and remembered grief and gravy. My food don't perform. It remembers. The room stood up as soon as the credits rolled. I stood there, flushed. Willie didn't clap. But Joylene did. Hard. Later that night, folks crowded me with business cards, nods, tears, and you changed how I see my grandma. Willie stood 2 steps back, arms crossed. One man from PBS leaned in, gently touched my shoulder, and said, We'd like to option this into a full series. National, your story deserves that. I bit my lip so hard, I thought I tasted every unpaid tab of my life. Willie mumbled something like, ain't this some bull under his breath, and walked out. Joylene said, let him. You just got upgraded, honey. Days after the launch, I came home one night to an opened laptop on the counter. Willie had tried, badly, to email the producers asking to be listed as executive family producer for promotional purposes. I didn't even correct it. Just called Kyra. She laughed and said, He emailed us from your AOL. We already deleted it. I filed papers a month later. Didn't ask for alimony, just peace. He didn't fight it. Just said, this ain't what I envisioned. And I finally said what I'd been waiting years to say. That's 'cause you never envisioned me. Just a version of me who stayed small enough to need you. Now these days, I got syndication letters, a voiceover gig from a seasoning company, 2 interns, my kitchen, new tile, brighter paint, but still has the same window light they used in that pilot. And some days I open comments from sisters in Michigan, Ghana, Charleston, even Germany, all saying the same thing. You remind me who I am. That's worth more than love soaked in doubt. That's liberation. That's legacy in cast iron form. It didn't take long after the show aired for things to shift. Not just on the internet, but in real life, at church, the grocery, in the way folks said my name. Ora Mae suddenly had a rhythm in people's mouths, like they was tasting it different now, fuller, with purpose. And not just Ms. Sutton anymore. Just Ora Mae. Like a brand. Like family. But funny thing is, the bigger I got, the smaller Willie started acting. He'd come into the living room, cut off the television if he heard my name, unplug the router if I was about to join a live stream, finally claim the garage as his space again. Talking about building a workbench comeback series, whatever that meant. I let him spiral. Until he did something I couldn't ignore. One Tuesday afternoon, between icing a hummingbird cake and setting up a shoot for a Juneteenth soul food spread, I got a text from KYRA. Hey, did you authorize Willie to offer licensing for Ora's porch pics? Just want to confirm. Licensing. I called her so fast I left batter all over the script I was writing for the intro. Licensing what? To who? Apparently, my husband had started emailing one of their partner brands pretending we had co-ownership of the show. Said he was handling merch rollout ideas. I damn near dropped the phone. Joylene, I said later that day, I think this man goned make me lose my Jesus. She was barefoot in my pantry, already holding a folder. I figured, she said. She opened it up. And I'll be doggoned if that wasn't a whole operating agreement for Oma Media LLC. Notarized, registered, and 2 steps ahead of anything Willie could try. You got this filed already? I asked, stunned. She popped a piece of peppermint. Girl, I told you I don't wait for men to realize we serious. We sent an immediate cease and desist to the brand partner, copying the Rooted Media legal team. Kyra was furious. Professional fury, the kind that meant action behind closed doors. I never even confronted Willie. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't storm. I just locked my office door. Put passwords on everything. Moved all company funds to a new account with only 2 authorized names. Mine and Joylene. Willie figured it out a few days later. I came home to the internet unplugged again. This time, the cords were gone. He sat in the dark, chair turned toward the oven like it said something to him. You think locking me out gone change what I built here? He said. I looked around. The fridge I stocked. The curtains I stitched. The house I made a home despite his laugh lines turning harder over the years. You built the bones, I said. But I filled them. You planted drywall. I planted dignity. He looked at me, jaw clenched. You left me behind. I met his eyes. No, Willie. You stayed behind. The community split clean down the line. Some called me a beacon. Said I gave other women permission to cash in on skills their families ignored. But others? Oh, the whispers had rhythm. She always did do too much. Willie was a good man. He wasn't out there cheating, just hurt. HMPH. Can't keep a man happy and be on TV? Something gone suffer. Even the sweet old usher at my church patted my hand extra long one Sunday and said gently, "You know, a man got a pride center. Once you step on it, hard to fix." I told her as kindly as I could. If his pride came at my silence, it was never worth fixing. People want to talk about a woman's tone more than they critique a man's disregard. I heard it all. Through the walls, through the comments, through relatives calling me TV famous now, huh? But let me tell you what I also heard. From a woman in Mobile, "You made my mama's meatloaf recipe feel sacred again." From a teenage girl in Kansas, "I thought homemaking meant disappearing. Not anymore." From a man named Clifton in Detroit, "I played your gumbo episode for my wife's funeral video. You made her feel seen." If that's too loud for somebody's fragile masculinity, they've gone have to turn the volume down theyselves. A week after the show hit 1 million views, Willie got a visit. I was outside clipping mint. He was washing the truck. A car pulled up I ain't seen before. Burgundy Lincoln. Out came an older man in black slacks and a fishing vest. Looked like time had loved his face, then let it go. "Willie Sutton?" the man asked. Willie nodded warily. "Yay." The man outstretched a hand. "Name's Clarence, your cousin." Willie blinked. "Cousin?" Clarence nodded. "Your daddy's sister's boy. I been seeing the show, recognize that yard. Couldn't believe you ended up married to that Ora Mae." Willie said nothing at first. Clarence smiled. "She'd the treasure of these parts now, you know. My daughter follows her stuff religious. Got soot stains in her apron trying to cook like her. Called her the Maya Angelou of biscuits last week. Y'all, I dropped my shears." Even from 20 feet away, I could feel Willie shrink. Clarence clapped his shoulder. "You better be proud of that woman. Ain't no sin in fallin' behind if the one ahead of you's carryin' the torch." He left after 20 minutes, something like peace trailing behind his tires. Willie never said much about it. But I saw the wheels turn. Some weeks later, I was asked to speak at the Alabama Women in Ownership Forum. Keynote speaker. Prime spot. I wore a burnt orange wrap and earrings older than our marriage. Joylene hit the stage before me with a funny introduction, and the crowd was already in love before I took my first breath. I opened with this. They called me just a homemaker. But I tell you today, the word home and the word maker should never be whispered like lesser things. To build love from scratch, to season memory into butter, to run logistics with bent knees and tired feet. That's not a hobby. That's strategy. That's war. That's architecture. And yes, that's ownership. The standing ovation shook me. But more than that, there was a letter on my seat when I got back. Folded, with initials in the corner. WS. It read, "Ora Mae? I'm not going to fix what I didn't understand while I had the chance. But I want you to know. I see it. I saw you build it. And I hope one day I figure out how to build something of my own I can be proud of. Even if that don't include you." He left that week to move in with his brother in Mississippi. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just stood at the door long enough to know. The story was still spinning, but we wouldn't be writing each other's chapters no more. You ever reach the edge of mourning and find relief? Not joy, not revenge. Just space to breathe. Leave in the comments if you know what I mean. These days, I film in peace. Ligaments still protest some mornings, but I get up and talk to that lens like it's an old neighbor across the fence. Used to be the sound of boots thudding in the hallway put pins in my chest. Now, only sound is my calendar chime buzzin' for my next shoot, schedule, or book call. Yep, book. One of the show's executive sponsors approached me about a memoir cookbook deal. Said, "We've read your captions, but what we really want is the soul. We want the in-between parts. The fights, the grief, the quilts folded wrong." And I said yes, because I finally understood. It's in helping them remember where their healing lives. On a plate, in a phrase, at a table built from what they thought had no value. The day I held the first copy of my cookbook memoir in my hands, it was drizzling, not a hard rain, more like the sky was sighing. Cover was soft, matte, green, like my best head wrap. Gold foil shimmered across the cursed. Stirring from scratch, stories from Ora's home table. I held it in the middle of my chest and whispered, "Mama, we made a book." Joylene took about 60 photos of me with it, standing under my crepe myrtle tree. I told her to hush, but I couldn't stop smiling. Who'd have thought a woman known for her collard greens and collecting coupons would one day have an imprint deal with 2 zeros she never expected after the comma? But what meant more than the ink, the events, or the money, were the people who wrote to say, "I feel seen. I feel possible again. You remind me of my grandmother and a version of myself I forgot." That right there. That's soul inheritance. Not fame, not applause, but being part of folks' healing in Sunday-sized bites. The launch event was held at the same community center where I taught my first paid cooking class. They'd redone the walls, brighter now, fresh floors, pictures of local history reading one generation feeds the next. It rained all day, but the crowd came anyway. Lines wrapped around the side. Church folks, young folks, white folks, TikTok influencers who didn't look old enough to cook boxed cornbread without help. Everyone waited in that drizzle to meet the woman who started her show with a garden variety phone and holy leftovers. Kyra was crying after the first hour. Joy Leanne wore a t-shirt that said, "She was never just a homemaker, she was the whole damn house." Nikki flew in from Tallahassee and brought Mikey, who whipped out a Sharpie and told people he was in the book too and would sign any blank page. He's 7. Just like I was when I made my first peach pie with a burnt top and still got praised like I'd saved the family. Willie wasn't there. I didn't expect him to be. But the next morning, a courier dropped off a long yellow envelope. No stamp, no return label. Just my name, handwritten, like somebody still felt it sacred even in silence. Inside was a letter. Simple, folded twice. Typed, Ora Mae. I watched every episode, every clip, every moment you stood in the light. Not because I wanted to take it from you anymore. That season passed. I watched because I finally saw the beauty you used to whisper into casseroles and hang off the corners of tablecloths. I heard your voice like it was new, even though you'd been singing for years. I can't undo the silliness of my pride, but I can say I'm no longer afraid of your greatness. And I hope your name stays in mouths long after both of us are long gone. Willie. I folded it slowly and slid it into the back of my cookbook, right next to the dedication. For the women who stirred worlds with wooden spoons and silent prayers, I saw you. Because I am you. Maybe that was the closure we needed. Maybe there's still more of the story to write, who knows? But if I never saw Willie again, I knew I'd already made peace with what I lost. Because here's the thing they don't tell you, baby, making peace ain't about winning. It's about no longer shrinking. It's about breathing in your own body. No interruptions, no apologies. And that's what I'd finally done. When the second season was greenlit, they asked if I wanted to relocate. Bigger kitchen. Modern equipment. Professional kitchen assistants. I said no. Told them I wanted to stay right here, with peeling paint and windows that sweat when I bake, with my back porch camera arm and the oak tree that leans like it's listening for wisdom. There's too much holy here. Too much real? Sometimes a place holds memory in the walls. Sometimes your seasoning lives in the tile. And sometimes the most powerful decision a Black woman can make is to bloom where she wasn't expected to grow. This season on the show, we had a theme. Reclaiming the table. And it wasn't just about mashed potatoes. It was about what happens when women decide to center their own stories, not as side dishes, but as the whole entree. The final episode of the season, we called it the Homemaker Rebellion. It featured stories of 4 other women who followed their dreams. 1 quit nursing, 2 do paint therapy, 1 opened a tamale cart, 1 made clay dolls of Black elders. The last segment ended with me, on my porch, holding my new book, smiling slight, sun in my eyes. Camera set in tight on my hands. Kyra had asked me to read a pre-written outro. I told her I'd rather speak from the spirit. So I did. I looked straight into the red light of the lens and said, they called me just a homemaker. But I was building legacy from leftovers. I stirred my name into gravy and let God bless what nobody wanted to see. And now, here I am. Not decoration, not helper, not wife to be measured by a man's mood, but woman, whole, named, worthy. You still with me? I know that was a lot. I know some of y'all have done cried 2 or 3 times already. But if you're still here, if you watched this whole story unfold with sweat in your fist and a praise in your chest, then I got one question for you. What would you have done if someone looked you dead in your face and called you just a homemaker? Would you have swallowed it? Would you have whispered? Would you have folded like wrinkled linen on the couch? Tell the truth in the comments. No shame here. And tell me where you're watching from. I want to know what city is pulling up to this porch. Drop A if you've sat in that kind of silence. Drop A if you're starting to reclaim your sound,